Hello everyone, my name is Himanshu Sharma. In this video, we will go through different ways of exception handling in Spring MVC. So let's get started. I'm on the Spring Initializer website and I'm selecting Maven 3.2 version. You can define as per your preference, saying MVC exception. And in dependencies, I'm just using Spring Web and Java 21. Alright, go ahead and generate the project and open in your favorite IDE. So let's head to the IDE. So I have the project over here, and in POM XML you can see we are only using starter web and nothing else. Alright, so first let's create a controller. So let's head to class and let's say test controller. Alright, and we say let's say greeting, and then we just define it as REST and controller, and here let's say get mapping. Let's keep it simple, and let's say okay, yeah, let's say greet, and then return hello user. Okay, so okay, let's create a object. Let's make it more practical. So let's add an object. So let's say greet. Okay, and instead of class I'll say record, and then I'll just specify, let's say integer id comma string message. Yeah, that's all. Then here in the controller I will say return, let's say new greet, and specify hello user, right? And okay, what's the issue here? Alright, sorry, my bad, we forgot to update the return. Alright, that's it. So we just created a simple controller which is returning the greet message. Okay, and let's test it out. Let's run our application very quickly, and alright, application started. Let's see the message. Set to the endpoint and let's run it, and yes, we are getting the response. You can check it over here. So it's working. Now let's come on to the exception handling part. So let's say in this case, instead of returning, I want to throw a message, an exception. And first let's create our custom exception. So we define an exception, say custom exception, and then we say extends exception. Okay, so let's say our controller method can throw this exception. So wait, alright, so let's throw it and say throw new custom exception, right? And that's it. And then you can say add it to method signature, and we can comment this part. That's it. Alright, now let's restart our application once, and okay, started, and let's test our endpoint again, and you can see we're getting an error, and here the exception is thrown. Now we need to handle it, right? So what we can do is, the first approach is we can create a method here in the controller itself. Okay, so let's say you can create a method stating public, and this method is going to return a response entity, and let's say for now let's keep it string. Okay, and you say handle exception. You can name it anything. Let's say handle custom exception. All right, and then we annotate it with exception handler message annotation, and we say custom exception class. That's it. And then we expect it to return response entity, and we saying internal server error, like we are marking it as a 500 error. And then in the body we can say, since we are returning a string right now, we can say unknown error occurred, right? This. Now let's restart our application and see how it behaves. Okay, application is started, and then let's hit our endpoint again, and you see I'm getting the response, and see the exception is handled. It's not just throw away. And yeah, okay, one more thing we can do is we can, instead of just returning a string, we can create an another record. Let's create one more record. So let's say record, and you say exception data like this. Okay, and then let's say error code, and let's say error message, right? That's it. Then let's get back to our controller and update it with exception data, and then here you can say new exception data, and let's say error code 1234, and this is going to be our message like this. Okay, so it will be like this now. All right, let's rerun it. And now we expect that we are getting a JSON object of error code and error message. All right, so let's clear this out and hit the endpoint again, and you can see we are getting a error code and error message. You can check the output here also. So this is actually IntelliJ Ultimate, and I'm using the inbuilt support, but you can test this out using any whether you want to use a curl command or you can use Postman. All right, okay, so this is one way, but here the issue is, let's say I have another controller. Okay, let's say I create another controller, let's say new test controller. Okay, now the problem is, in this controller, let's say we have a similar data, so I'll just copy paste right from there. In our test controller, let me copy paste this one and use it over here again. Instead of greet, I'm saying let's say new greet. Okay, and we are saying greeting new, and here also we are throwing the same custom exception. The problem here is, now if I test this out, if I run it, and if I test this endpoint, since it is also throwing the same exception, it will not be handled by that method. Okay, so now if I just go over here, and then here I'm going to run this new greet endpoint again, see, it's not getting handled. All right, so now in order to make it work, either we need to add the same method again over here in this class, or the second approach is we will be creating a controller advice. That means we're going to create a new class. We'll saying that, okay, exception handler, and let's say name it CA. Okay, or let's name it advice like this. Okay, exception handler advice. All right, exception fine. Here we'll mark it with controller advice annotation, and then the only thing we have to do is whatever method we have written over here, this one, sorry, yeah, this one, I will just remove it from this class. Okay, and let's update the imports, and then I will put it inside the advice class here. That's it. The only thing I did is I created a class, annotated with the controller advice, and rest all implementation I just moved it from our test controller to the controller advice. Now let's restart the application. Alright, it started, and here now let's test out the both the endpoints. So first let's go with the new grid, the new one, and you can see this is also now getting handled. And if I click on the older one, the greet one, this one is also handled. So this is the second way where you can create a controller advice annotated class and then put all your exception handler methods inside it. So if you are throwing any other exception, you simply need to copy this one, paste it here, change the implementation as per your requirement, and just change the new exception class whichever you need. Okay. Now there is one more way, and let's say you don't want to send this kind of custom exception message like error code or error message. You want that whatever the Spring is providing already, you just want to send the status that okay 500 or 404 or whatever status you want, and a simple message. That's it. So now what I can do is I will comment this out. Okay, I will comment this out, and I will also comment this class. So it's just a simple class, not even managed by Spring now. And what I will do is I will go to my custom exception class, and here itself I will annotate it with response status annotation. And if you go into this annotation, you have two things to specify, which are like this one, the value and the reason. Okay, so now let's go ahead. We say value, yeah, and here you will be using the HTTP status. So what we are going to use, we are going to use the internal server error, right? This one, and then we are going to specify the reason, and let's say team is looking into the issue. Okay, like this. Now the expectation is whenever this exception is thrown from the controller, this the response will be a 500 error, and with the reason that team is looking into the issue. Okay, so let's restart the application. Okay, or let's change it. Let's change the status itself. Let's change it to something else because we are already using 500. Let's say make it bad request, for example. Okay, it's a 400 error. So let's make it a bad request and now restart the application. All right, started. Let's head to our endpoints, and we can use either of them because both of them are throwing the same exception. We send it, and you see we are getting the status as 400 and the error you are getting as a bad request, right? But one thing you notice that the reason which I mentioned over here, that is still not coming in our response. So for this, you need to make one change in your properties file, and that is you need to include this configuration, that is server error include message. Okay, so now if I restart, let's clear it out in the meantime. Started, and now let's hit the endpoint, and there you go. The reason which I specified comes under the message field. Team is looking into the issue. Okay, so those are the three different ways. First one is to create an exception handler method inside your test controller itself. But if you go with that approach, you need to do that for every controller. The second approach is you can create a controller advice annotated class, which is our this one, exception handler advice. And in this approach, you will be able to handle multiple exceptions, uh, ranging like from different classes. Okay, and that those all are controlled in a single class. Okay, and then the third one is the exception one, where you can simply annotate your exception itself with the response status. But here the one catch is you are only setting the reason. You are not getting the control to send the custom object, while in the other two cases we are using the response entity in our response, so we have the option to customize how the payload will looks like. Okay, so that's all in this video. uh, Thank you everyone, thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please let me know in the comment section. Thank you and have a nice day.